most people think that what we just talked about is what they have to do. They think they have to find the needle in the haystack and pull out that one promotional word or that one spammy phrase that they didn't even realize they used. And they have to find it and pull it out and everything's good.
Hey, what's going on? Joel Irway here, and welcome to another very special episode of Sold with Webinars. I've got a very special guest here for you today, something we've never talked about, and it is all about email delivery, deliverability, excuse me, maybe delivery too, who knows? I guess they're both kind of the same thing. For those of you who are building your list, for those of you who run autoresponders, for those of you who run webinars, this is going to be a very relevant topic because over the past handful of years, I have been, ashamedly lazy on doing the proper list management with my email list, and recently I was running into some issues with clients not getting my emails, like just sending out of my Gmail account, not even connected to any of my autoresponders. And so, it became a big issue because we were sending like delivery emails, like any of our agency clients, like we'd actually hand off our projects to them and they weren't getting it. And so we had a couple of those issues pop up, and, I started to realize if this is happening just with our Gmail account, I can't imagine what's happening to our autoresponders that are running 24/7. So I have been connected with our guest here, Troy Ericson, for a little while on social media. Saw him, talking about email delivery. Had a bunch of people, refer me to him as, the guy to help solve this. So I hired him, and we ran a test to our list after he worked his magic, and we saw about a 20% lift. So we did a split test with one broadcast, and we had about a 29% open rate on the stuff that, like a regular email that we sent, and then we put his magic on it at the end, and we got about a 35% lift. So that's 15 to 20% boost, which ended up being a couple hundred extra opens, which is awesome. So without further ado, we're going to talk about all things email delivery here today. Troy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Joel. I appreciate it. And I've been following you for a long time as well. And when you reached out to me, I was like, wow, it's Joel Irway. So to be on the podcast is really special. Thank you.
You bet, man. So why don't you give us a little bit of background of, I guess I'm kind of curious, like what made you jump into the email niche and like specialize in email before you even got into email delivery, email deliverability, or maybe that was the first niche you got into was email deliverability, but give some context as to how you got started in the world of email marketing.
Yeah, I was actually doing Facebook ads probably around like 2016, 17, kind of getting my feet wet. A lot of people were doing it, doing like Facebook ad agencies and all that. And I wanted to do it too. I was in college and I was a baseball player. I ended up having something called the yips that inhibited my performance to like throw baseball. And all I wanted to do at that point was like, all right, I just don't want to do something normal. I can't play baseball anymore. I was like kind of heartbroken. So at that point, I just go and I'm like, Facebook ads. So I start running Facebook ads, get some clients off of Upwork. It was going okay. And then at the same time, my last two clients are like, hey, we need to talk. I'm like, all right, that's not good. Find out they wanted to fire me. And I was like, why is that? I'm looking inside Ads Manager. Everything looks great. And they're like, well, our emails really aren't getting through and we're not making any money from the campaign because of that. So what can you do? And I was like, let me figure this out. I'm just going to do something. So I dove in. I had a little bit of experience from a different client, but I just went in, found that they weren't sending many emails. They weren't written well, and they were all going to spam. So I did my homework. I went in, and this was all free at the time because I was not an email marketer. I was just like, let me figure something out. Spent some money, studied up, learned how to get people out of the spam folder, learned how to write a little bit. Didn't really even know what copywriting was. Eventually, it went well. And I saved one of those clients, took their list revenue from about 13 grand a month to 51 grand a month after the course of that summer. And I was like, you know what? This is a lot better than Facebook ads. So I dove in, started going to some events and copy accelerators, Stephen Georgi, Justin Goff. Those guys have, made a very big impact on my life and introducing me to this awesome realm of internet marketers, especially on Facebook. And we just helped a lot of people with deliverability because, you know, there's a lot of copywriters out there, but I took it to the next level with deliverability and just helping people understand something and get higher open rates, which is something that most copywriters can't do. So that's kind of how I branched out and became the email paramedic.
Awesome. So like when you decided to go all in with email marketing and email deliverability, like explain to us a little bit of like what goes into email deliverability, because we chatted before this call and I gave you my experience of like, good Lord, like you can get deep down the techno babble route. And that's basically when I threw up my hands. I'm like, I'm not learning any of this. It doesn't even make sense to me. Like, I don't know how to, like, I don't know what happens on the back end of, you know, right now our email server is through Kartra. And, you know, aside from me knowing how to connect to Kartra, I don't understand like the back end connection of like, okay, you sign up with your domain and then black magic happens, or, you know, voodoo magic happens and like your emails get delivered, but there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. So like, can you give us like a high level overview of like the technical stuff back end? Like, I don't really care about the terms, but like, I guess I really want to know like why stuff goes to promo, why stuff doesn't go to promo, and what are some triggers that flag your account or flag your emails or both.
Sure. Yeah. So to simplify it for somebody who's not super familiar and not go too far into the weeds, one of the most important things is domain reputation. And anybody can check their domain reputation at postmaster.google.com. And Google will basically tell you what they think of you. It's almost like going out on a date and the other person can honestly say what they thought of you. It's like really crazy, right? So they'll tell you, and you can see if if your reputation is bad, low, medium, or high. And basically, the higher you are, the easier it is to inbox. Other things that are going to affect are your IP reputation, which is generally on the shoulders of where you're sending emails from, so like Kartra or ActiveCampaign or Klaviyo. And there's more advanced ways where you can improve that too. But beyond that, it would be things like your subject line, what kind of links you're using in your emails, make sure they're not blacklisted, and then your body copy, and even like the from name, if you ever change the from name of your emails. So those things carry a lot of weight in placing the email in either the primary inbox, the promotions folder, or the spam folder. So those are all super important to kind of keep in mind. And the best way to kind of test all that for somebody that's like, what the heck, that's a lot of stuff. All I do is I open up a new account, just go to Gmail, open up a brand new account, and then just go ahead and send a test email to that account and see where it lands. And that'll give you a pretty good overview, you know, a small sample size. But if it goes to promo, you probably have a lot of emails going to promo. If it goes to spam, you probably have a lot of emails going to spam. If it goes to the main inbox, that's good. So that's kind of how I would get started if I was new with this and I wanted to find out how my deliverability is doing.
I mean, that was essentially domain reputation was when I finally pulled the trigger. I'm like, hey, dude, I need to hire you because I don't get this. I can't even remember what I did, but I did some sort of domain reputation search and found out that like my domain was flagged or blacklisted or whatever. Like it looked really, really bad. And I'm like, okay, maybe this is the reason. And I don't know how to solve this. That's when I hired you. My question is with this is, you know, I thought I was screwed. I thought I was like permanently blacklisted, but that's not really the case, right? I mean, is it as simple? I mean, I think what you told me is I can just go ask them to remove me from some of these blacklists, right? Or like, let's talk about blacklists for a minute. Like, you know, who runs the blacklist list? I mean, that's not Google, right? It's someone else or some other entity.
Correct. Yeah, there's gosh, thousands and thousands of blacklists, but there's only about 8 of them that actually make a difference. If you Google like rack aid, 8 blacklists, there's a site called rack aid and they tell you all 8 of them that matter. So I like to use this site called mailgenius.com. Basically, it's another one of those testing sites. You just send a test email to it and it'll give you a report. It'll tell you which blacklists you're on, if any. And if you're on any of those 8, all you do is you click the link, you go to their site, and most of the time they just ask you to remove any bad email addresses, which you can do like at neverbounce.com or one of those list cleaners. Then after you've done that, you pretty much just pay a fee and they take you off the blacklist in most cases. But
Yeah.
Blacklists are a little more rare. Most people are just testing their emails, seeing where they land, is going to be a huge benefit. Whereas like a blacklist, it happens on occasion, but it's a pretty rare thing.
Got it. Okay. So, good news is if you're on a blacklist, it's not permanent, and it's you just sounds like a scam, but like you pay somebody to get you off it, or you pay them, and they'll remove you. Right? Sounds very legitimate, but as is the world of email management, I guess. All right. So, if we go through like the list of importance of like okay, cool. Like let's say we set up a test account, start sending emails, and we realize, oh, some of our stuff is going to promo. Like order of importance, like starting with domain reputation, then subject line, body copy, from name, from email address. Like what is the hierarchy of like what matters most?
Yeah, so in order, it's usually going to be domain reputation and then the actual email address you send from after that. So if you know what an alias is, that's the thing before the @ sign. So my email is troy@leadparamedic.com. Troy is the alias. We've actually found a lot of success. This won't work on its own if you do nothing else, but it does help. Help at yourdomain.com for some reason does really well. So the order of things would be domain reputation, changing the alias to help. After that, it would be like from name, subject line, link text, so the text that's actually hyperlinked, and then the links themselves, and then the body copy is typically going to be the order. So it's like you can tweak those things and try to move where it lands, but it can be very painful to sit there and try and guess which of those things caused the problem and continually test over and over and over again, which does work, but it takes a lot of time, and that's why I don't do it that way anymore.
Yep. So I didn't realize like the link text actually matters. Like not even the hyperlink. I mean that matters too, but like you're saying the actual link text matters. Why is that? Like any
Yeah,
reason?
it's really interesting. And to be clear, I would say the actual link matters most, especially if anybody's doing like affiliate marketing. To be very clear, like always check and see if somebody gives you a link to send to that it's not on a blacklist, and you can just like Google domain blacklist search. Because if you start sending traffic to a blacklisted domain, that can put you on the blacklist, and it gets messy. Or if you use the same exact like swipe copy in your emails as other people do and they are on blacklist, that can be an issue. So you always want to make sure you change up things when you're working with affiliates. But the reason that the text in the link matters is it's all just like hierarchy, right? So everybody's going to see, your from name and your subject line. So that's why it's at the top, because like even if people don't open the email, they can see it in their inbox. Now, after they open it, the most next likely thing they're going to do is click the link. So whatever text is hyperlinked, they can see that it's blue, their eyes are drawn to it, and they're about to go to an external site on the internet. So if you use a really spammy language that was kind of like crossing the line, that's probably why it triggers it. So it's just a lot of testing that I've done. Sometimes if there is promotional words and phrases in the link text, you can remove it and then it'll inbox better. So there's so many different factors. It's a crazy algorithm, but that's why it can take a while to manually find what that one word is that's causing the problems, but it does work.
Yeah. Sounds painful. Like it sounds really, really annoying. So you said that was the old way of like doing all those tests to kind of like, hyper analyze what's triggering it, what's not. So explain like what you do now. Like what's the better solution? What's the new way?
Sure. So again, without going too deep into the weeds, the general overview is that most people think that what we just talked about is what they have to do. They think they have to find the needle in the haystack and pull out that one promotional word or that one spammy phrase that they didn't even realize they used. And they have to find it and pull it out and everything's good. But instead of searching for the needle in the haystack, I was like, you know what? Let me do some testing. And I actually found this by accident. There was I was working with a client, they had one email that never went to the promotions tab, like no matter what. And it was super weird because everything else did. So I went And I was like, gosh, that's odd. So I copied that email for all the other emails that I wrote in the future, and I just wrote the new copy on top of it. And it was almost like two emails in one. And I tested it and it's still inboxed. So I was like, that's really odd. And what I learned from all that was that basically, for whatever reason, that one email, the words in it just weren't promotional. Like the algorithm deemed those words as non-promotional. So I figured if I balanced out promotional words with non-promotional words, I could probably get it to work. And it was working over and over on the testing for this client. So basically what we do is we create like a custom like brand story or like footer that we put in the bottom of the email for every client we work with. And it takes a while to find that exact footer and get the wording just right, where it balances out the promotional text with non-promotional text. But it works. And once you get it down, you just like paste it into every email and they inbox every single time. So it takes a little bit of time up front, but then afterwards it's super easy. So basically the moral of the story, it's not about the promotional words and phrases you use. It's to make sure that you're balanced out at 0. So you're not like using too many. And if you balance it out, you don't have to worry. You can say pretty much whatever you want in the email. You can be like, big sale today, 20% off, last chance, buy 2, going free, like whatever you want, as long as it's balanced out by non-promotional stuff.
Yeah, that was like the biggest aha moment for me, and actually kind of makes sense. I mean, it makes sense because it kind of reveals what the algorithm is without fully revealing it. But like, you start to understand, like, once we finished, working on our emails, I read, my brand story or whatever you put for our footer, and I'm like, oh, all right. So this kind of shows that Google is putting preference, not just like, okay, yes, of course you can send promotional emails, but the way that the algorithm is working and the way that like Google preferences it, or that Google analyzes it is just like you said, it's a balance. Like it's a percentage. Like, no, it wants to know that you, I don't know, like care about your audience, or like it's not just super spammy, right? And so, and that's really what you guys split tested, you and your team. Like I remember they were going through my account, and I think Nick's on your team, right? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Nick was working on it, and I remember he was sending tons and tons of test emails, but he was kind of like balancing that brand story or that signature at the bottom, which is it's lengthy text, but it explains who you are, who I am. It explains why I'm writing emails. It kind of reminds them why why they're on the list. And it's just the game they got to play with Google, I guess. And, the proof is in the pudding. I mean, all of our emails have inboxed when we've used that, and the open rates went up tremendously, and click-through rates. I mean, it all works. So that was a big eye opener for me. And it was also great to know that like I'm not permanently banned from whatever I was on one blacklist, but I think Nick was like, yeah, don't worry about that. That's not an important one. I'm like, okay, whatever. So
yeah, it's like I said, it's a really complicated algorithm, and it's weird to explain why they do certain things. I don't know anybody at Google, but from doing this for, gosh, I think we're over like 430 clients right now. It's like, that's what I've learned. And I've done it for myself for a long time. And, we've taught probably, gosh, like thousands of students that are my belt now. How many implemented, I don't know. But at the end of the day, it's like, we've tested it in so many different variables and markets and niches and domains and different problems people had before they came in. And that's the main thing that we found, is they just really care about like what percentage of the email is promotional. We don't know what that percentage is, kind of depends on your domain reputation. But at the end of the day, you definitely can't have too high of a percentage of promotional content.
yeah. And I remember like I started doing some research on like getting out of the spam promo, and I learned about like split testing your emails and trying to find that needle in the haystack. I'm like, there's no effing way I'm doing this for every email. Like I'm just too lazy of a marketer to do that. Now, if somebody's like the bulk of my revenue is not from email. Now, if it was from email, then okay, I'd probably put a higher priority on like really analyzing that. But I remember like when I saw some people showed me like, yeah, you just got to split test. I'm like, not going to happen. Like, I'm not going to do that with every email that I'm sending. Like, just not going to happen. So this was a breath of fresh air.
Yeah,
Is there?
thank you. And
Yeah.
it's It's really odd too, because I don't want to like crap on anyone, but like if you Google how to get out of promotions tab, there's some really bad advice out there. And they're like, oh, just tell everybody to move you over and drag your email over. I'm like,
Yeah.
you can't do that on mobile. Like nobody's going to do that. And they're like, change your subject line. It's like, how do you know if it works? And like
Yeah.
nobody talks about the right way to do stuff. They just guess. And it's crazy. And like when you actually know what the algorithm's looking for, you can actually like make changes and see benefits. So it's super important to at least set up a test account and start implementing right away.
So are there any other factors that, we really should be aware of when it comes to like email management and domain reputation? Like, okay, we get that signature, installed, we find one that's winning. Like, what about maintenance? What happens if it goes to promotions later on and we're still using that?
Yeah, so for the most part, like we don't have too many people that email us and say it doesn't work anymore. If they do, then we just fix it for them. There were a few people after the last Gmail algorithm update. I think it was like in March that emailed us and had me fix it for them. But at the end of the day, the main thing still like, and to be clear, with what I do, it gets results very quickly, but there's still things you should do to make sure that your list stays healthy over time, such as like segmenting your list. So for me, I don't email anybody who hasn't opened an email from me in 90 days or more. I just take them off the list because eventually their email can turn into a spam trap, which is basically where Google goes, okay, this person hasn't opened in a long time. They're not using this account anymore. We're going to turn it into a trap because marketers shouldn't be emailing anymore. And if they do email it, we're going to put them on a blacklist. And if you do that enough times, they will. So there's different reasons that you should keep your list clean. That is one of them. So that's kind of like the main point for maintenance and list hygiene, is just making sure that you're not mailing really old contacts. The only exception to that is every once in a while I'll send what I call a revival email to your contacts that they're still subscribed, but they haven't opened in a while. I'll send one like maybe every 6 months. And when you fix your deliverability, you'd be surprised how many people who haven't opened in a long time will now open your emails because they're seeing them again.
Yeah.
So it's worth it to throw your hand in the bucket, see how many you can pull out and reactivate. We've had people that have recovered like 9,000 inactive leads. And even at $1 a piece, that's like finding 9 grand off of sending one email. So there's some benefits, but overall, you just don't want to email people if they're really old.
Yeah, that is one thing that I've already confess that I'm not like the greatest manager of my list. So I'm going to share a couple of things that I had to be aware of because this is relevant for everybody. And, on top of everything you just said, Troy, which is very, very valid, depending on your email service provider, like make sure you aren't getting tripped up with some nuances that are specific to them. So for instance, with Kartra, if somebody on your list clicks unsubscribe from the list, it doesn't actually unsubscribe them from like all of the lists, which is like, that's not good. Like that, again, most people, like I'd say 99.9% of people who receive emails think that if you click unsubscribe from the list, you'll never receive an email from them ever again. Like that's what they want. And then they keep receiving emails from me because just the way that lists in air quotes are set up within Kartra, like you can have multiple lists. And so it's just this weird, like you have to understand that as the list manager, you have to understand the quirkiness and the intricacies of your email service provider. So you're not pissing people off who are thinking they're unsubscribing, then I keep sending them emails. And so I'm pretty sure that's probably why I got flagged on a couple blacklists, because I didn't even know how to fix it until like recently, but we were sending emails to people who unsubscribed. I'm like, I have to reply to them like, listen, I'm sorry. Like, I don't want to be that guy who is just spamming you. Thank you for being professional and letting me know. Like, I'll just go ahead and delete your contact information inside of Kartra. But like, word to the wise, if you're listening right now, like make sure that when somebody unsubscribes, they're actually unsubscribing from your entire list. That might sound dumb, but Kartra is notorious for that. I don't know why they don't just make that standard. Like if you unsubscribe from one, you unsubscribe from everything. But That's like probably the biggest piece of advice that I can give from experience of being a novice email marketer or a lazy email marketer. Like that will get people to spam, like flag your email as spam, and I don't blame them. Like I would do it too. Like if I'm unsubscribing, then I immediately get other emails. Like yeah, I would definitely unsubscribe.
Yeah, you definitely have to be careful with that. That's for sure. And sometimes people are also making little silly mistakes. Like sometimes I'll click opt out, and the next page will be like, which email do you want to unsubscribe with? I'm like, I don't remember which one I opted
Yeah.
in with. And I can't remember. So I just mark it as spam. And it's the little things like that. So it's always important to kind of go through your own processes as if you are the subscriber, and just
Yep.
make sure that it's working correctly, because that's the only way to know for sure.
Yep. Yeah, and I would say like um I think your team actually helped me do this too. Like identify the list or the leads that haven't opened in the past 90 days and send create a separate segment for them. I can't remember, but we did some sort of like list revival campaign, or I don't remember what we did, but making sure that you're only sending to people who are opening your stuff, that is that is key too. Just for general list hygiene. And I'll be honest, like I don't do a good job of segmentation, but we are making it a point to like reach out to people who aren't opening our emails or deleting fake email addresses, just so we aren't like sending to bad emails and spam traps and whatnot. So um, helpful advice for sure.
Yeah, totally. Neverbounce.com is really good for that. Just to make sure your list is clean. But yeah, there's a lot of different moving parts, and just making sure that you're in touch with all of them. And just make sure you don't send to people who haven't opened in a super long time, and just segment. Send good content, and just know that it's more about the quality, not the quantity. Like everybody wants a bigger email list, and I do too. But at the same time, quality is way more important. Like you got to make sure people love being on your list. They enjoy getting emails. They feel entertained when they read them. That's what really keeps people reading, is that they open the email and they're like, wow, like that was good. I enjoyed that. It's not always tactical stuff. It's stories, and that's super important. And those people are going to be your best customers over and over and over again.
Well, let's talk about that real quick. Actually, Never Bounce, because I've always wanted to ask somebody this. Never Bounce, is that where you integrate Never Bounce to your email opt-in form and they check? Is that the email validator tool?
Yeah, they have two services. So that's one of them. So you can make sure that people who opt in, they're giving you a good email. And then they also have like one-off services where you upload the list, and it tells you who you should remove from your list so you don't get in trouble.
Oh, that's interesting. Is that something you guys use regularly? Like, is that part of your, like, would you recommend that for all your email clients?
Yeah, I'd recommend scrubbing your list probably 1 or 2 times a year. Or if you're adding leads like very, very, very quickly, then you could do it like once every few months. But it's a good tool. It's not like a magic bullet by any means, but it's just a good practice.
Yeah. Have you used the email validator, to whatever that tool is from Never Bounce? Have you used that one?
I
Like,
personally haven't.
on the opt-in forms, I mean, specifically.
Yeah, I personally haven't used that one, because we pretty much, get all our traffic from paid ads, and then like right underneath, I'll say make sure email is real so we can send PDF to you or
Yep.
something like that. And you'd be surprised how many fewer bounces you get when you simply tell people to use a real email. Just little things like that.
Yeah, yeah.
And outside of that, like I'll get people opting in because they hear me, speak somewhere virtually or in person or wherever. So the quality is very high. But yeah, I do run the one time never bounce clean every 6 months or so.
Yep. Awesome, man. Well, this is very relevant. It's almost like a quick win that people can get, and it's an evergreen win. Like this is a compounding effect when you fix your deliverability. I mean, after we did our list cleaning with you and we um, added that footer, um, like our open rates are now like 30 to 35% on average, which is fantastic. And I think beforehand we we're at like, I don't know. I can look it up, but it was like in the tens. I don't know, like 10, 15%. Now granted, we were also emailing probably people who never opened our stuff. So but that matters. You only want to be sending to, people who want to hear from you. And anyway, it was super, super helpful. So now, I mean, we're at 30 to 35% regularly. When we did that split test, I mean, our winner was 35%, and that helps. That helps a lot. So, where can people connect with you to learn more about Email Paramedic?
Sure. Yeah. So if you're interested in exactly what Joel's talking about, the same service, get out of the promo tab, that's at emailparamedic.com. If you're like a freelancer and you're kind of interested in what email list management is, because this is just a portion of my business. I run lists for people too. So emaillistmanagement.com is where you can go if you're a freelancer. And if you're just looking to say hello, say what's up, I'm on Facebook and I'm in there every day. I personally post, I tell a lot of funny stories.
Right on. Troy, it's been a pleasure, man. Really appreciate working with you and your team. Gives my full stamp of approval, my highest recommendation. So hopefully that means something to my listeners. And if you do reach out to Troy, let him know you heard him on the Sold with Webinars podcast. And Troy, thanks for jumping on, man. It was fun.
Thank you so much, Joel. I appreciate it.
You bet. All right. We'll see you on the next episode, and take care.